Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. We get Luke Braun's camp takeaways today. Can't wait. That was Bart Scott.
Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Hey, JJ just got his 99 Madden Award at Walkthrough yesterday, so might have to ask Ron Johnson if he remembers what his Madden rating was back in the day.
And I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I can't wait to take a victory lap on every single one of my pre-camp takes.
Can't wait for that. Coming up on today's Minnesota football party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
What's up, everybody? Another Thursday on the Minnesota football party. Welcome into the show. My name's Sam Ekstrom. I'm at Sam Ekstrom on Twitter. I cover the Vikings here for Locked On Sports Minnesota, also part of the Ron Johnson Show and Minnesota Sports Rank'em. Find me on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom. It's a Luke Fest today. Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman, NFL Draft Buzz newsletter author, and Luke Braun, who is at Luke Braun NFL on Twitter. Forgot about that for a moment. You can get his spicy camp takes on that Twitter account. He hosts Locked On Vikings. We are Arifless for today, and for that, we are sad. Ron Johnson, though, will join us. Yeah, debatable. Ron Johnson will join us later in the program to give us his training camp hot takes. We're full of nothing but opinions today, and I can't wait to get Luke Braun's. He was out at camp in the flesh first time a couple days ago, so we're going to have him empty his notebook. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, though. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more. Sign up today, and sign up to get Locked On Sports Minnesota's content. It's free on YouTube, free and available wherever you get your podcasts or the Sirius XM app, one of our great new partners. Let's kick it to Braun. You're here in the Twin Cities. You saw the injury-plagued... Oh, it's Luke Braun's fault. Luke Braun shows up.
Oh yeah, I'm very cursed.
That's what happened. Okay, now I understand. Well, everybody got hurt on your watch. Other than that, what'd you think?
Yeah, the injuries sucked, although it seems like they all came out with decent news, right? Like Alexander Madison participating in walkthrough, Tristan Jackson avoiding ligament damage. I wonder if, if Tristan Jackson can get back in for any, because it seemed like he was actually going to be able to make a push for the roster the way that he was playing, but can't make the club in the tub. So that is a really, really bad break for him personally. My takeaways, I guess. It was interesting to see some of the players that have been getting all the hype. I haven't been able to see Jalen Naylor yet. Obviously, he's still out. But, seeing Jordan Addison for the first time and say, oh, okay, he's real. Like, that's, sometimes you get the first look at a guy and they're drilling with the threes and they're not really looking spectacular. And you're going, is this guy just like developing or why is he so slow? No, Jordan Addison looks like the guy he was in college, which I was a big fan of. So that's nice seeing like Ivan Pace excelling on special teams and on defense. Everybody's going, well, is this undrafted guy? Is he going to make the roster as easily as everyone says? It seems like yes. And watching the special teams drills in particular, and guys like Najee Thompson having a good day, guys like Tay Gowan having an unbelievable day. That's one that I've been like raving about on Locked On Vikings because he had an unbelievable day on special teams and then went and won a bunch of one-on-ones in the wide receiver cornerback stuff. So I'm very curious to keep watching him. It's like, did I just get his best day, or is there something surprising about to happen? And I think the same, we were talking about Brandon Powell and Jalen Reagor, and I think most of us had Powell over Reagor. Very vindicated there. Powell looks a lot better. He looks like right now the fourth best guy on the field with no Jalen Naylor there, which tells me I feel like that's going to be the guy that makes the team. Obviously, it's more about the punt return competition than the wide receiver competition. But he looks like a guy that, like, hey, if a bunch of injuries happen and he has to go in, I'd be like, I don't know, there's some potential there. Maybe we can see what this guy has.
Would you be bold enough to say Brandon Powell may be the biggest winner of Viking training camp? Because Sam and I just did a rank 'em, and I had the winners. I put Brandon Powell as number 1, Ivan Pace number 2.
Him or Gowan for me. Those are the two guys for me that were the biggest risers in my in terms of like my roster predictions. And then probably Ivan Pace, who's getting in with the ones, got a sack when he rotated. All the second team linebackers rotated in with the ones, and when he did it, he got a sack, and he's been firmly with the twos. And so he is just already above Troy Reeder, who in all of my initial roster ideas, I was like, okay, well, Troy Reeder is probably the default guy there. And I think that's just wrong. I think that it is Ivan Pace.
And it's not even Reeder, and like it's not like
it's Dye.
It's Dye. Yeah, Dye continues to hang on to this team. I don't know how he's doing it.
If you're not a starter, it's about special teams.
Yep,
it's always about special teams, and Troy Dye's been a core special teamer the whole time he's been here. Watching Mullins and Jaron Hall was very interesting. Watching the safeties was interesting because you're going, well, is Lewis Seen like bad or what's the deal? No, I think there's just 4 good safeties. Someone's got to be fourth. It's a deep room, That's not a problem.
Did you get a chance to, I don't know, dissect it all, like some of the new plays or formations or wrinkles out there at all? Because you're such a big X's and O's guy, and I know this KOC offense now like the back of your hand with all the studying you've done ever since he was hired and brought in. Any new wrinkles or any just observations, more 2 or 3 tight end sets, fullback looks, anything like that you kind of gleaned some new info on?
Yeah, maybe the take that I hawked about the most all offseason was, the Vikings are going to steal from Kyle Shanahan. They're going to start doing Shanahan stuff. CJ Ham's going to be like Juszczyk. TJ Hawkinson's going to do the Kittle stuff. Like, they're going to start doing San Francisco 49ers things. Well, guess what they're drilling? If you watch the running backs, if you're at the night practice and you watch the running backs in individual drills, watch and see what kind of motions they are practicing. It's really interesting. A lot of the same ways to get to what in the Shanahan world is called like force, which is fullback to the outside lead blocking, or weak, which is fullback lead blocking to the weak side linebacker, or Mike, fullback lead blocking to the Mike linebacker. Lots of different ways to get the fullback in whatever position he has to be in to get that linebacker. And they're just sort of drilling the timings of those motions. But you can tell that that's going to be some of the stuff that they run out of that 21 personnel, and they're spending entire drill periods drilling that. And not only that, but also having the running backs drill being lead blockers on that. So we might see some 2-back kind of Miami Dolphins style, where you have maybe Alexander Madison out there and Dwayne McBride lead blocking for him or something like that. That was something that got drilled before Madison went out with that hamstring. So a lot of interesting wrinkles on that in that run game, and also having, tight ends drill that kind of stuff too. I also, looking at Josh Oliver as a receiver, he looks solid. It's nothing. I mean, he's not blowing anybody out of the water or anything like that. You don't expect him to, but hey, he runs the route the way he's supposed to. It's crisp enough and he makes the catch. That'll play.
Yeah, Oliver is going to be sneaky impressive in this offense, I think. I loved the phrase, and I told this to Luke earlier. KOC used the word removal to describe what happens when Josh Oliver is lined up next to Christian Darrisaw or Brian O'Neill.
Yeah.
He's the 6th offensive lineman. He's the George Fant of this offense, where he's just helping plow through guys, creating lanes.
The Aviant Collins, if you will.
There you go. Love that pull. Yeah. Hey, can I take a hard left here? What's the dead cap situation look like next year? The Danielle Hunter numbers are out. We know Kirk Cousins is going to have $28 million whenever they decide to part ways. Marcus Davenport's got like $7 million and change, I think, in dead cap. What was your just quick impressions on the Danielle deal, just being the cap wizard that you are? And then any projections as far as how much dead cap are we actually looking at next year?
Yeah, if you want to look at the negotiation as a competition between Danielle Hunter and the Vikings, which I think sometimes that it can turn into that, the Vikings won. I don't think Danielle Hunter got really anything that he wanted out of any of this. He did get more money, and that's great. He got a raise on salary cap, a raise of about $7 million, and then I think it was like 3.7 or something like that next, or 2.7 or something like that in extra dead cap next year. So he gets a little bit of new money. He has a very high sack incentive. Ben Gessling just reported this on Thursday morning that his incentives, he's got a $3 million incentive tied to sacks, and that's not likely to be earned, which means that incentive is above his sack total last year, which was 10.5. So it'll be like if you get 11 sacks, you get $3 million, or it could be like 12, 15, 18 or something like that. Either way, if he hits that incentive, it becomes a 2024 cap charge, but it will not, that $3 million does not count until he hits it. So if he doesn't hit it, if he gets hurt, or if he just doesn't get 10 sacks, then that $3 million just doesn't exist. So it's between 14.5 and 17.5 in dead cap for Danielle Hunter next year, depending on how those incentives go. And if I can look at it, I've got dead cap up right now for 2024.
They've got 50 million in dead cap. Like, let's just,
is it 50?
It's stupid. It's 28 Kirk, almost 15 Danielle, and then Davenport almost 7.
Does that worry you guys?
Over the cap hasn't.
Jeez, holy smokes. I know we're in a youth movement here, and, he's cleared up plenty of room for the, the foreseeable future, Kwesi, that is. Obviously, we're going to see what these JJ deals and Hawkinson and Darris saw down the line, but 50 mil, man, no matter how you shake it out and try to sugarcoat it. Jeez, that's tough.
It's part of the plan. This is the cost of getting out of Kirk. I think a lot of people really, really, really want to be done with Kirk Cousins. I think that's just the size of it for a lot of Vikings fans. Is I will not get excited until it's not Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins to me is synonymous with 8-8.
And some of this is on Rick Spielman as well, right? I mean, he started kicking the can down the road long before Kwesi showed up.
Yeah, Kwesi inherited a Kirk Cousins contract situation, and he had to transition out of it in a way that did not torpedo the franchise Ryan Poles style. So Ryan Poles is digging out of a hole right now with a really, really bad roster, as many assets as he can get, but it's a really bad roster. You got to hit on a lot of draft picks, hit on a lot of free agent signings now. Kwesi didn't want to deal with that. He's trying to transition smoothly out of it, and it is a much smaller cost to say, all right, we got a big dead cap year in 2024. We'll pay the piper there.
So just bite the bullet 1 year and be done.
Bite the bullet in cap space is a way smaller cost than biting the bullet in roster quality. Having a bad team is a way higher cost than having a little bit of a cap puzzle you got to figure out.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, 50 million though, that is a big number, and I would say that and odds are, like, in theory, you could make that go away by bringing the player back, but I don't think any of those players are coming back. Kirk would actually be
Hunter,
the likeliest in my eyes. Like, if they worked out something short term with him, if he had a really good year, and I still think that's unlikely.
I should mention both players in Hunter and Kirk, who are the biggest of those dead cap hits, have publicly said they would love to, stay a Viking their whole career for whatever stock you put into that. And I do believe them. Like, I think that that's true that they say that. And I think it's more, do the Vikings want to do that? Which I think is a no for both right now. But hey, look, if they go to the Super Bowl, this might change, right? I think this season has a lot to do with that decision-making process. And so I don't think the Vikings are really going to try to make that decision ahead of time. I think they're going to think about that as soon as the season ends. And it's going to be this really mad rush, because from the end of the season, if they don't make the playoffs, from the end of the season to the void date, which is when these two guys will become free agents, it's like in the middle of February, there's like 6 weeks to come up with a new contract. So it will be a mad dash to come up with something if they want to. And if we don't hear anything for the first couple weeks about them trying to do something, like if it feels like, we're not gonna, like, if it's just radio silence and it's a day before the void date and we haven't heard anything, I'm gonna guess that those guys are just becoming free agents and Kwesi's building the team that he wanted, not the team that he inherited.
Outside of the dead cap, what's Kirk's base this year? What's his cap hit just this year? What's the cap hit on Kirk?
I can look at it right now.
Cap hits 20.25.
Okay, so I guess the glass half full way that some people are going to choose to look at this is going to say, okay, well, if you do move on from Kirk, you take that 28 hit, but it's not like you're going to move on from Kirk and go sign another free agent, right? Quarterback. I mean, at that point,
Kyler Murray. Somebody said they're going to trade for him.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but most likely the scenario that plays out is you're rolling with the draft pick. So all of a sudden, instead of that $20 million base, you're starting quarterback, you're only paying peanuts, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. So you do get a little bit of that back, or it helps soften the blow, I feel like.
He's got his 28 mil dead cap hit. But once you get through to 2025, you have rookie QB on a small rookie contract, and maybe he's competing with Jaron Hall or whatever, and that's your QB competition that we're covering in camp in 2024. But hopefully that helps you sort of get through, and now you're out of these huge bloated contracts that Kwesi inherited like 7 of from the Rick Spielman era. That's part of why Rick Spielman isn't here anymore. And then he can sort of build the team. But I think a lot of it too is just Kwesi inherited guys. These aren't his dudes. He wants his dudes. He's going to be more loyal to Brian Asamoah than Eric Kendricks. It's just kind of how it goes with GMs.
I don't even know if they'll be able to afford a quarterback in free agency if that's the route they wanted to go, like a Kyler Murray, just at least in 2024, given all that dead cap. I think it's got to be either Kirk or a rookie at the end of the day. I'm sure
you can always find a way.
Cap some.
You can always find a way, and it's just that the cost eventually becomes cap flexibility in the future. And if you're willing to sacrifice cap flexibility in the future to get your quarterback, which feels like, I would probably make that devil's bargain, then, go ahead and pull the trigger. And then it just becomes, if you give up too much cap flexibility, then you have to start doing what the Rams have done, which is basically, crap, we just kind of have to let the roster die for a minute.
Right.
Now you got to rebuild through all of that, and you can't let, that's where the Bears were after Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and all of this.
I remember when Big Ben finally retired and hung it up, and he had like 22 and dead. And granted, that's what, like 10 years ago now or whatnot.
Packers are eating 40 this year from Rodgers.
Wow.
Like 40 split across the next 2 years because of June 1st stuff. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, they're eating a huge hit off of Aaron Rodgers. I think it's the biggest ever.
Wow. Or make a decision after this year too. Right?
And then you got to figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
They do have a 5th year option though. So.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they picked that up. And didn't they renegotiate like an amended 2-year deal to take him through the 5th year option? I thought they might have done that. Someone can verify while I tell us about FanDuel. And then we'll get into who can gain most from playing in preseason games, and also who's just eliminated from roster contention at this point. More training camp talkers after a word from FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On and America's #1 sportsbook. You got NFL futures, you got golf futures, you got a lot of ways to bet at FanDuel, but you can also bet the MLB games every single day, a full slate every day at FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting at FanDuel's MLB Sportsbook. You can get up to 10 times your initial bet back in bonus bets. So if you put 20 on the Twins minus 130 tonight, they'll give you $200 in bonus bets, whether the Twins win or lose with Sonny Gray on the mound. You can bet 10, get 100, bet 5, get 50. That's the great new promotion going on at FanDuel. At FanDuel, it's very easy to use. FanDuel.com/lockedon or the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Very intuitive. You also get paid instantly when you win. No better place to bet baseball than at FanDuel Sportsbook. They are an official partner of Major League Baseball. And again, that website, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Claim your bonus bets today. And a reminder, folks, make sure you tune into our Locked On Sports Minnesota Roundtable. The everydayers know what I'm talking about. It's Ron Johnson, Luke Inman, myself, usually Reggie Wilson. He's out tomorrow. We might have a surprise 4th chair in that show, so that'll be a lot of fun. Talk about the night practice, talk about Vikings training camp all day, every day here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. So, Luke Inman, who do you think can gain most from playing in preseason games, actual games, live bullets? That's our prompt today on the 4-minute drill.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
Spinman, what do you have for an answer?
I think if you were to ask me this a month or two ago, I'm looking at the running backs. I mean, when it came to running backs in preseason, we were most excited about what this rotation was going to look like. A lot of young guys, how these guys are going to be used. But I think that's all pretty much locked in stone. I'm turning to the passing game next because like Kirk said at the podium yesterday, it's one thing to do it in practice, but until you get the physicality, right, the energy ramped up during a real game, it's tough to know which of these wideouts has those natural ball instincts to fight for the ball and go up and get it. So just knowing Tristan Jackson's probably on the mend for a while, I'm looking at guys like Thayer Thomas, who's made some noise, Garrett Mogg, who's got, the boundary alpha 6'4" frame, Blake Prohl, this is probably his last chance to make some noise, and probably even Jalen Reagor. I mean, he's got to do something, anything come live action to save a roster spot. Not to mention who's just got the natural timing, some rhythm, some chemistry with these backup quarterbacks, whether it's Nick Mullins or it's Jaron Hall throwing them the ball. So there's a roster spot or two to still be had there potentially. And I think it's still anyone's game. It's just a matter of going out, making some splash plays, and looking the part of an NFL wideout during a real game come preseason.
Braun.
I got two. I'll stay with the passing game for kind of the same reason. Look, with the twos, especially with Tristan Jackson likely out, I don't think he'll play any preseason, even though he avoided ligament damage. But what about Lucky Jackson? Because he will now be on the field at the same time. He's been with the twos, so he'll be on the field at the same time as Brandon Powell, who I think is now the front runner for that last wide receiver spot, assuming Naylor gets the fourth one. So if he can really show out and eat up a whole bunch of those targets, every catch he gets is one that Brandon Powell isn't getting. And if he can just directly outplay Brandon Powell, he might be able to sneak onto the roster, or at the very least prove that he deserves a practice squad slot that gets you in the building, that gets your foot in the door, right? I also think I will go with somebody in the running game. I think Dwayne McBride has a great opportunity with Alexander Mattison, healthy or not, will not play in the preseason. And you'll get a lot of competition between Ty Chandler and Ken Nwangwu for that second job. But Dwayne McBride's going to get a lot of reps in the second half of these games. In the parts that nobody watches, he's going to get a lot of opportunities to prove himself. And look, watching him in camp, he looks like the same guy he looked like in college that I got really excited about. I think that with a lot of opportunities, I think he can show out and have that AJ Rose style hype train, but actually with the ability to keep it up for all three games. If he can do that, I think not only can he make the roster, but he might be able to crack the rotation a little bit more than we're all expecting.
Yeah, because there is no Rose, there's no Jarrell Presley, there's no one who's going to mop up who's not going to make the team. Every single carry is going to come from somebody who's probably going to be on this roster. So that is different than other years that we've seen. I'm looking to Mekhi Blackmon. First of all, is Juwan Williams going to be asked to play in these games? I think you have to. I think you have to play Juwan
He's with the
Williams.
twos now.
He has been relegated to the twos, and I think this is sort of phase 2 of the camp competition there. So it started out week 1 was all Juwan. I'm guessing, just a guess, the plan was always to let Mekhi have a go at it. And that's the mode he's in right now. Juwan Williams has 300 cover snaps in his career. Just because he's a veteran, 25 years old, I think you got to play him. You got to see if he can hold up. Braun, did you see the rep? I think it was the practice you were at, where Jordan Addison ran by him like he was tied to the ground.
I only saw how much separation Jordan Addison had. I did not see how he got it. But yeah, I saw that. I mean, he was streaking.
It was, alarming. And I know that those drills favor the offensive player, but alarming separation against Juwan Williams. I'd like to see Williams, and then I'd like to see Blackmon. I'd like to see those two sort of competing directly against each other because the door's wide open for Blackmon now. Andrew Booth Jr. is basically, he's hurt, but he's out of the competition. He's out of the competition. So it comes down to Juwan Williams and Mekhi Blackmon to be that CB3. And I think that Blackmon has a shot at it. I think that Williams has a place with his size, with his physicality. Maybe he's just a backup. Maybe he comes in, in a pinch. But Mekhi Blackmon has a lot to play for here. And it's funny, the contrast, because they're 5 inches apart size-wise. But if Mekhi can show out, then I think that there's room for him, in that starting group. So I'm watching Mekhi. I think that, if he can avoid too many penalties, if he can be sticky in coverage, if he can communicate well, that he can earn that. He can go a long way toward earning that starting role. So I'm looking at the 3rd round pick, Mekhi Blackmon, for sure. So thinking roster-wise, guys, You can go obscure, you can go kind of notable, but who do you think has an X already through their name who's not making this team at this juncture? Luke Braun, what do you think?
I'll give you 2 receivers. That was most of what I watched on the Tuesday practice that I went to. And there are a couple of guys that just look entirely outclassed. And also, we're getting beat on special teams. And I think if you go into a preseason, you're not getting kickoff and punt snaps, it's over. And those 2 guys for me were Cephas Johnson and Garrett Mogg. Now, Cephas Johnson, I still think might have use on the scout team just as a Justin Fields stand-in when you're preparing, because he's got QB experience and he's athletic and mobile. And you don't need him to be a good quarterback. You just need him to run around so the defense has something to aim at. So I think there might be something there. But Garrett Mogg looked like far and away the worst receiver. He had 2 drops. He struggled getting separation. I saw him run one winning route the entire day. He was just getting blanketed. So those 2 guys for me feel like it's a little bit over.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Inman, any hot takes here?
I think with everything Brandon Powell's done, Jalen Reagor's stock is pointing way, way down, and he looks like he's on the outside looking in. Powell's just been that much better than him across the board in both the passing game and the punt return competition. So he's got a long hill to climb. I think I look at the defense, right, and we'll see what happens with Andrew Booth and that injury and his timetable, but that position is just so deep. It feels so deep at the top, right, with the big 5 and with Joejuan Williams. And personally, I think they look at a guy like Jay Ward as well as a nickel cornerback potentially in the future. And they just obviously used a day 3 pick on him, so he's not going anywhere. So just guys like Kalen Barnes and all those UDFAs are really fighting an uphill battle, I think, to make the roster as well. Luke kind of mentioned it. One of those guys has to stand out on special teams like Tay Gowan if they're going to make the final 53. I think it's really important, too, to remember they only kept 3 tight ends last year. And even though I know we're going to see a lot more 2 and maybe even 3 tight end sets, I think just knowing they're already going to have to use an extra spot on Jaron Hall, so keeping 3 quarterbacks as opposed to only 2 last season. And now if you keep 4 tight ends with Nick Muse, all of a sudden as a GM, I'm already down 2 roster spots compared to last year, just like that. And just knowing this defense is so new and young, I don't know if they can afford to steal 2 spots from offense from the defensive side of the ball. So Nick Muse, I think, is going to have a really tough time making this roster as well. I'm not willing to put that in Sharpie quite yet because you never know. But I just think on paper and playing out this numbers game here, he may be out of luck.
That Nick Muse versus Johnny Munt battle for that possible roster spot is really interesting, because I think if they both play really well, you just kind of, that sends the coaches into, okay, we just can't justifiably cut either of these guys. They just played too well. So then you have to start going, all right, well, maybe we'll do 1 less receiver. Maybe we'll do 1 less O-line, 1 less, defensive tackle or whatever. And they'll have to do it that way. But yeah, that's a very interesting battle. And I see it as a little bit more neck and neck right now. I think they've both done good things. I think they've both done bad things. But in the preseason is when that is the proving ground for all that stuff.
And sometimes I like to listen to the coaches too, like Wes Phillips, I think, talking about the tight ends. Sometimes where they cut off their praise is telling. Like he'll say, yeah, we got Hawkinson, we got Oliver, and then we love Johnny Munt. And then no mention of Nick Muse, right? So like that does matter when coaches kind of just speak their gut about who is important to them. And Nick Muse hasn't, to me, stood out a tremendous amount as a pass catcher. I think he has other value on the field besides that, but I wouldn't say that he's a lock whatsoever, Luke Inman. I think you're right on that. You know who's toast, guys? Ross Blacklock. Ross Blacklock, I think, has been totally left in the cold in this camp. I mean, you've got Jaquelin Roy getting reps above him, TJ Smith, Odamewo, James Lynch. Ross Blacklock is in the same realm as, who's the most obscure person on that line?
Up there with Benton Whitley.
Sheldon
Day, third teamer.
Junior Aho, Sheldon Day. Yeah, that's the kind of company that Ross Blacklock has kept. I don't think he's making this team, and I don't think it's really even close. I don't know how they're gonna, like, I think you're looking at about 12 players, wide receiver and cornerback, where they're all competing for like 2 or 3, maybe 4 practice squad spots. Kalon Barnes, Tay Gowan, CJ Colden, Najee Thompson, Jalen Williams. I think they're all practice squad candidates. I know you love Gowan, Luke. I think that's still practice squad material.
That might be the spot he's winning right now.
And yes. And then at wide receiver, Prohl, Lucky Jackson, Garrett Mogg, Cephas Johnson, Thayer Thomas. The only way that any of them make the roster, I think, is due to injury. And Thayer Thomas is probably the furthest along right now to be your wide receiver 6. But I still think you gamble and try to get him through the practice squad. I just don't. It's so fluid too now with the rules and the elevations. Like if you're on the practice squad, you're basically part of the team. You're basically it's like it's no longer the 53-man roster. It's the 69-man roster. Yeah. So anyone gonna say nice?
I don't.
I was gonna leave it.
Yeah.
You can't ask for it. If you get it, you get it. Sam.
You gotta, you can't. You let it hang, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Speaking of 69, anybody seen Calvin Avery out there, an obscure defensive lineman? He was one of these UDFA. I was slightly intrigued about monster of a human, 6 foot, but like 330, coming from Illinois, strictly a nose tackle. Just curious if you've seen number 69 out in any rotation at all.
Struggled with being too big at times.
Nearly enough for my liking. He's listed as 343 on the Vikings official roster. That's a big boy.
That's a big boy, especially again at like 6 foot, not like 6'4", right?
Yeah,
that's that out a little bit at 6 foot. Woo!
That's a thick guy. I think he's also been kind of running with the 3s next to Blacklock.
Just kind of in the weeds here, but Sam Schluter waived with a non-football illness. That sounds kind of concerning, does it not? And he remember he started with the 2s, and we were all we were caught off guard. Whoa, Sam Schluter, and now he's gone. Non-football illness. That's
the same designation that KJ Hamler had some like heart thing, and it was a procedural thing. They were going to get him on IR while he worked to recover from whatever that heart thing is. I don't know the details of it. So I wonder if maybe there's something similar there, or if you got the flu and they're just kind of looking for a way to cut you to bring in a guy that the Denver Broncos just cut, which was Christian DeLorio. Fascinating guy who's been in the league for 5 years and made his first active roster last year, has not taken an offensive snap.
And this has not been announced by the team yet, but you're saying that was reported.
That was reported by Aaron Wilson, who usually goes off of the transaction wire. So I imagine it's on the transaction wire that is available information, and it's just the team hasn't like officialized or just hasn't made the tweet yet.
Got it. And then another update too, Marcus Davenport did not compete in team drills the day you were out there, Braun. Was not at the walkthrough. Nobody knows. Okay. KOC talks at 4:15 today, but I thought I saw him earlier in that practice. Did my eyes deceive me? Did you see him in one-on-ones, Luke? Do you remember?
I never saw him, but I also never saw TJ Hawkinson. So I might not be the best.
And KOC, he's actually been really good about volunteering injury updates too. And this is different from the previous head coach. We don't always know specifics, but he's pretty good at giving timelines. So we know that Jalen Naylor expected back soon. Chris Reed expected back during camp. Daniil Hunter kind of getting ramped up for joint practices, stuff like that. And that is helpful from the head coach. We do appreciate that. And then let's see, we don't have an update on Booth. We don't have an update on Madison, although he was at walkthrough yesterday. That was a good sign.
I think Wes Phillips said like something optimistic, right? Said like he should be okay or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Madison expressed that the day of too. He walked off and told people that he was going to be all right. So I don't know what happened to him. Just tweaked something evidently, and
that's going to be something where he's in at walkthroughs, but man, he's going to take 4 out of 5 of the next practices off. Just going to keep it super cautious and close to the vest.
I saw it happen. He took a check down, and you know how like running backs will always keep running after they're tackled.
Yeah.
So he kind of got out into the open field, and as he sort of let up his speed, he grabbed right at his hamstring.
Okay. You don't like to see that.
Yeah, I was like pretty worried, but if he
Yeah.
was at the walkthrough and everybody's saying it's all fine, then maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion.
Well, we all blew the Tristan Jackson thing out of proportion because how could you not? I mean,
he was in a
you
lot
see-
of pain.
Yeah, what a
Yeah,
gruesome
I saw him
pain.
come down on it.
Once the cart comes out, and it's like the first guys to go over there was KOC and Kwesi and some other guys. Like,
And Jefferson.
and
Jefferson
JJ.
was over there.
Sure, but still, the way the picture was painted by a lot of people, including yourself, saying like it sounded like a pretty vicious scene, pretty rough.
Yeah, so I don't know if Wes Phillips is insinuating he didn't tear a ligament or if he literally didn't hurt a ligament at all. It's something completely.
I think he
Apart-
said no
from
ligament
that.
damage was
Yeah.
verbatim what he meant.
No ligament damage, which
what
is
he
huge.
said.
That means it's like a muscle strain or something, which can still lead to a long absence. So it might still be enough to keep him out for like preseason, which he needs really
Yep.
bad,
Yeah.
which sucks. But it's interesting with like if it's like a true ACL injury, unless it's one of those like the whole unholy trinity crazy bad ones. A lot of times those like ligament sprains don't hurt as bad right away as they do the next day. And there's adrenaline running because you're competing and all that. So they won't look like they're in as much pain, but then the cart comes out and they're like, oh, I'm fine. And then the next day it's like, no, you tore your ACL, you're out for the season. But
Right.
then when you strain a muscle or if you sprain your ankle or something like that, it hurts like the dickens. And then you put some ice on it and you stretch it. And in 3 days, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Justin Jefferson was the most rational about it. Like we talked to him right after it happened after practice. He's like, well, we don't know what happened yet. So we're hoping for the best. And we're all like, okay, like he's done, Justin. Like call a spade a
He's
spade.
toast.
No.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson showing caution in when faced with injury questions. That was smart on his
veteran
part.
move. He's a crafty vet, man. Knows
He's
what
a
he's
crafty
doing.
vet. Night practice today, always very stimulating. Lot going on. They usually reserve some of the most fun drills, a lot of one-on-ones. They usually do some deep ball session one-on-ones too, where it's like, okay, go ball. Let's do it.
Mhm.
So we'll get to see the Jaron Hall arm. We should get a healthy amount of 11s. And Luke Braun, you'll be in the crowd, of course. We've talked, I don't know if it's really that different than talking about who we need to see in preseason, but is there anything in particular you're watching for today?
The go balls will be fun. And if you're going to the night practice, I would say when Jaron Hall is throwing those go balls are pretty. And that was his bread and butter. That's like his throw. And it lives up to the hype. It's very pretty. In general, the backup competition, I think both those guys have made a pretty good case for themselves so far. I think that'll be a fun competition in preseason as well. But for me, I think just after this conversation, I'm going to watch Johnny Munt and Nick Muse. I want to see if I can really get a sense for who's playing better. I think Johnny Munt is currently snapping higher than Nick Muse, but who is playing better? Is that going to be something that, Nick Muse really pushes for that spot? Or are they both playing well enough where you do keep four and you just figure out what else you have to do on the roster? And then I think if you haven't been to a practice and you're going to the night practice, when they do individual drills, watch the fullbacks. That'll give you a sense for what the Vikings are doing in the run game. Watch the fullbacks. Fullbacks tell you everything.
Keep your eyes on Zach Ogile. Did CJ Ham look svelte to you like Ron Johnson told us?
Did he what?
Did he look svelte? Did he look trim? Did he look lighter? You might have missed
I have
that.
an answer to that.
You might have missed that. Ron Johnson came on and reported that CJ Ham was like 12 pounds lighter.
Oh, wow.
So keep an eye on that.
Oh, my God. He's our use check.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. You just blew Luke's mind, by the way.
Oh, it's so happening.
It's all coming full circle.
He can already catch wheel routes on Marlon Humphrey. And now he's lighter and faster. Let's go.
Oh, I can literally picture that play, by the way. That wheel on Marlon.
That high point?
So yeah.
Oh, man. He looked like Kyle
Left
Rudolph.
sideline. Oh, let's play. What a game, by the way, that Baltimore game. Holy smokes.
That was a crazy game, yeah.
I'm looking at also, this is what, practice 3 only with the pads on? So the trenches, right? Sometimes it takes a couple practice for these guys to get the momentum and get that feel back of hitting one another again. I'm still very curious. We already touched on it, this defensive line rotation, how this whole thing shakes out, who looks good, who flashes a little bit, who pops in one-on-ones outside of the obvious, Kyrus Tongas and Harrison Phillips. How's Jaquelin Roy progressing and developing? And who's going to win that, 4th and 5th spot? Sezi, Jonathan Bullard, the veteran. You mentioned Ross Blacklock. He's nowhere to be found. And same with the offensive line. How's the continuity look with the starting 5? But then the backups, right? Guys who have been cross-training like Blake Brandell. We know he can do it at left tackle. How's he looking at guard? So I'm looking at the trenches. And then, of course, you got to keep your eyes on Ivan Pace for me. Just hone in on him for 4 or 5 plays at a time and just see how good he looks as well and where he's at in the rotation, second team, or maybe still sniffing some reps with the first team as well.
Some very unfortunate news. Ron Johnson is a late scratch on today's program. So in his place, we are going to play Immaculate Grid.
Oh, boy.
Let's play. We got to lean on Luke. He's the veteran here.
Oh, no way. I gave up on him a while ago. I'm so bad at these.
Yesterday was Vikings, so it was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Today is not. So for the listeners, again, Immaculate Grid, you have to identify a player that has played for the 2 teams indicated in the grid. So we've got Raiders and Bengals and first team All-Pro across the top. We've got Lions, Jaguars, Cardinals down the other side. So Lions, Raiders, Lions, Bengals. We need those players. We need
John
Jags,
Kitna?
Raiders.
Now, is this the one? Because there's like 3 of these, and I always get the rules mixed up. Is this the one where you just have to have been an All-Pro ever? Or is this one where, like, if I have Lions All-Pro, can I put Adrian Peterson?
No, I believe it had to have occurred for that team.
For that team, okay.
So I find the All-Pro and like the stat line to be the easier. So let's get that in the bag. So All-Pro for the Lions, Jags, and Cardinals.
And are we going for extra rarity here? Or are we just trying to get an answer?
I think for the sake of time, let's just try to win the game. Let's just get an answer.
All right.
So Calvin Johnson probably would be
Calvin
safe.
Johnson's the easiest one. Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders. Which one do you think is rarer?
Calvin Johnson. I think Barry Sanders is more synonymous with the Lions than Calvin Johnson, although that might be a
49%.
Okay.
All right.
Wait, what do you want? Do
Jags.
you want a higher percentage or lower?
Lower.
You want to get percentages
rare.
that more people haven't chosen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could go with Larry Fitz for the Cardinals.
Larry Fitz would be very safe.
Who was the offensive guard that was just a stud during the 2000s? Just a monster.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think. They had
Gosh.
I'll never think of it. They had like a quarterback in the 70s that had, I think, an MVP season, and then it died at the Met in Bloomington during one of the Super Bowl runs, but I can't remember. That might be the Rams. That might be Roman Gabriel.
All right, let's just go Fitz.
Yeah.
I hate when you do one that's super obvious in your mind and it turns out to be wrong.
We could have said Patrick Peterson. That probably would have been better, but
Oh man, you're right.
good enough. Good enough.
Okay,
Jaguars.
Mark Brunell, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Fred Taylor, Tony Baselli.
Of those 5, McCardell seems like he would be.
Was he an All-Pro? First team AP All-Pro, though?
I think he was a Pro Bowler, but yeah, was he an All-Pro?
I think.
Who had the absurd sack count like a couple of years ago for them?
A couple of years ago?
Yeah.
That wasn't Ngakoue.
Remember, it was Saxonville. Remember? It was like Calais Campbell. It was
Ngakoue.
Who was the massive D tackle they had, though, too? John Henderson, first rounder? Top 10 pick? I'm going early 2000s now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those like initial teams, like that 99 Jags team,
Yes.
probably had a whole bunch, if you can remember those expansion guys.
Right.
so
I want to say Jimmy Smith is the best answer here,
Jimmy Smith.
but
Okay.
I'm not 100% on it. So
McCardell
veto
was
me
not.
if you feel
McCardell
confident.
was like super consistent, but was he a first team All Pro? That would be my reservation.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Tony Baselli? Do you think he was an All-Pro? Maybe not.
Do you want to pound the table for him?
I remember it was Calais Campbell and Yannick Ngakoue, Dante Fowler, maybe Malik Jackson.
Fowler, yeah, that was like Dante
Malik
Fowler.
Jackson. That was the one I was trying to think of.
Was he
And
an
I don't know if any of
All-Pro,
them.
though?
Miles Jack.
I don't think
right?
He
Wasn't he on those teams?
Yeah, he was.
He was an all-pro.
I don't think he was an all.
AJ Boye was there.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey.
I think that. Oh, we got to go Ramsey.
We got to go Ramsey.
Got to go Ramsey.
People are screaming at their screen.
Just
Come on.
furious.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We got it.
Now
I got to look up if
46% for the people listening at home, by the way.
46%.
Okay.
Okay, this is the part of the show where there's going to be long pauses, and we're just going to have to think.
Yeah, we got to just figure it out. Well, I got one for Cardinals Raiders that's pretty easy. Carson Palmer.
There you go.
Could also work for Cardinals Bengals, so I don't know which one we are going to have more trouble with.
Should we holster that just in case we need it?
Yeah, I got Lions
Yeah.
Bengals, John Kitna. Mentioned that one.
Oh, big one. Very nice.
Very nice. I'm kidding. 36%.
We would have been wrong on Jimmy Smith.
Raiders Lions. How
Second
about
team All-Pro.
Raiders Lions? Amir Abdullah.
Ooh.
Fantastic. 43%. That's high. I would have expected.
Yeah,
a lot
that's
more.
high for Amir Abdullah.
Yeah,
Good
I
for
was
him.
expecting like 3%.
All right, so we're
Okay.
still sitting on Carson Palmer, so we still got 3 to go. Jags, Raiders, Jags, Bengals.
Jags, Raiders, Jags, Bengals. Boy, holy smokes. That AFC gets a little cloudy for me.
I know. I have big blind spot.
NFC North, obviously bread and butter, but
You can't
AFC,
expect me to know multiple
right.
Jaguars.
Bengals, Jags, man.
I can barely think of 3 Jaguars at all.
Cornerback.
Did Mark Brunell ever play for the Raiders?
I don't think so.
Boy, I don't know about that. Think journeyman.
Yeah. Like
the
McCowns
brain
of the
always
world.
goes to the best players, but
Right.
you got to think of like medium players.
Josh McCown played for the Raiders, right? We know he played for the Cardinals because
Oh,
he threw
Josh
the Nate Poole
McCown
pass.
for sure. There you go.
Did he play for the Raiders?
I almost feel like he had to. Dude played for like 13 teams.
Yeah, we're just throwing it out there. Did he play for the Raiders or the Bengals? Do we feel? I don't think he played for the Bengals.
Did he play a game for the Raiders?
Just has to have one snap, right? Just
Yeah.
one like
How about
one,
Luke
one
McCown
stat.
even? Look at that. 04 to 2015.
I didn't realize he was in the league that long.
All right, we're going to risk it all on Josh McCown.
Okay.
Boom.
Hey, 5%.
Oh, let's play.
All right, we
Wow.
can slam Carson Palmer in the other one.
Palmer.
Boom. Bang, bang. 49%.
49, yep.
So
So
now it's
Jags,
just Jags,
Raiders.
Raiders, and Jags, Bengals.
We need the Jaguars are beating us up.
So now this is where my brain starts thinking of former Vikings that were also
became-
former Jaguars. Oh, Ngakoue. What are we doing?
Oh, right, of course.
Duh.
Yeah.
Easy.
17%.
Now we just need a
Okay.
Jaguar and a Bengal.
Finish it off.
Jags,
I'm
Bengals.
trying to think of that because that 2017 Jags team really scattered to the wind. Which one of them ended up in Cincinnati?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. Let's see. Who've been their quarterbacks over the years? David Garrard.
Chad
What's Nick
Henne.
Vigil up to?
Bortles.
Bortles.
Bortles was never a Bengal.
Denard Robinson was the running back from Michigan everybody loved for a hot second.
Oh yeah,
Who was their wide receiver from Colorado that they traded?
LaVisca Chenault.
Where'd he go?
what's he?
He
a
went to
Panther?
Carolina.
Yeah.
God, I
Where
almost
did
I'm
CJ
struggling.
Henderson end up?
CJ Henderson? That's a great question. I
That was
can't remember.
Their top 10 corner that everybody knew was bad.
Right. Blaine Gabbert. He was a quarterback. Did you already say that?
Was, but he
Gabbert's
didn't
been
fit.
around the block. That's for sure.
It's tough because the Bengals had Andy Dalton for so long, so you can't do the journeyman backup thing very much.
Mm-hmm.
Running back rotation. I mean, there's so many running backs that get churned through. So many third and fourth
Reese
wide
Jones,
receivers.
Drew. Yeah.
Like what's Samaje Perine up to? He's a commander, right? Or he was a commander, now he's a Bengal.
He's a Bengal now. Yep.
Yeah. Or who? I'm thinking of Gio Bernard.
Yep. That's a good
He
one.
went to Tampa.
To Tampa.
We're in the right state. Luke, can you rattle off?
Honing in.
Can you rattle off Jaguars draft picks for us? Do you have that in the recesses of your brain?
I mean, again, like Denard Robinson, Cecil Shorts, Aaron Colvin was a cornerback. Justin Blackmon was a first rounder in the Matt Khalil draft. Miles Jack, CJ Henderson, you already mentioned.
I feel like the Bengals 2021, the Super Bowl team was made of a bunch of free agents. None of those guys were Jaguars ever?
Josh Allen.
Or, yeah, like what's the former Viking that went all around the world? That's the answer to this.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any. Remmers. I don't think Remmers.
Mercedes Lewis. I remember he was a tight end there for a little bit.
Is Tyler Eifert an answer to this?
Ooh.
Is he a Jaguar? I know he was a Bengal. Was he a Jaguar?
Bengal.
Or what about kickers? Like kicker journeyman.
Yeah.
Lambeau.
Kickers.
Josh Lambeau is the only Jaguar I can think of that was a kicker. Eifert might be the best guess we have.
Yeah, I feel like Eifert.
I'm thinking tight ends, or like they had Uzama. Now they have
Croft. Now they've got Irv.
They have Irv Smith. That's who it is. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Mixing him up with.
Okay, former Jaguars or Viking. Who overlaps for Vikings Jaguars?
Vikings Jaguars.
Gakwe,
yeah.
D.D. Westbrook.
D.D.
Westbrook. I don't think he went to the Bengals.
Don't think he went to the Bengals.
See, even that is a tough one.
A totally off the wall one because I have no idea where else he went in his career, but Mediu Williams, Bengals and Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Was he ever a Jaguar?
There's probably so many like little 1-year stints at the end of guys' careers.
You're right. If you're a super sicko, that's like 0.03%.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I'm so honed in, my brain's so warped on thinking about Jaguars. I should have started with the Bengals almost.
So, yeah, I can think Bengals better than I can think Jaguars. So I'm so bad at these.
Former Zimmer guys.
Yeah, right. George Iloka, was he ever a Jaguar? Tashawn Gibson, he was a Jaguar.
I'm trying to think of Bengals from some of those Marvin Lewis teams.
Was there ever like a weird, like a Terrell
Corey
Owens
Dillon?
that one? Yeah. Oh, Corey Dillon is interesting.
TJ Hushmanzada, Chris Henry, Chad Johnson. Man, I can't name one offensive lineman for the Bengals during those years, though, either. Or really defense.
Hushmanzada seems interesting.
Like Vontaze Burfict. He was a Raider. He would have been a good.
Oh
no, we don't have
Vontaze.
Bengals Raiders.
Yeah.
Or that 2015 team had all kinds of interesting names on it.
Hushmanzada or Eifert? I think it's down to that in my mind.
Hushmanzada, I'm pretty sure, was not a Jaguar because we lost that free agent bidding war for him to Seattle, right? And then he like retired immediately. What about like Mo Sanu or Marvin Jones? Marvin Jones.
He went to the Lions.
He was a Jaguar for a second, wasn't he?
We're gonna click it. Oh, we got
it.
Wow.
We got there.
Luke Braun saves the day.
Whew.
Well done.
Oh my goodness.
It's a Brett Favre flip pass right before I got sacked.
Wow.
That was great. Well done, guys. Yesterday they had Vikings on there, and it was I think I went like 0.1, 0.3, and 1%.
Give us a couple names you dropped down there.
I did Sendejo for Vikings Cowboys.
Phenomenal.
I would have done Xavier Woods, so yours was way better, I bet.
I didn't realize Sendejo counted for the Cowboys. I thought he was like wasn't he on there before he was a Viking?
Yes, but he played.
He did play. Oh, I thought he was like a practice
spotter. What else did I do? I can't remember. It'll just be a mystery. Might have been, maybe there's an Everson Griffin in there. Yeah.
Let me see the rarity on that Marvin Jones.
Yeah.
How like did we struggle super hard to get one that 33% of people got it?
Still can't believe Amir Abdullah is 43%.
Not the best
Yeah.
rarity score of all time, but
And
still.
Ramsey
No,
was
but we said we weren't
46.
going for that. We said
Winning
we just
the
needed
game.
to get
Right.
an answer.
That's right.
Winning the game is still pretty difficult.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Good job,
So Luke, you're burnt out on that already. I saw you posting tweets about that like 2 weeks ago. You've gone through the cycle now.
I
life
gave
cycle.
up because I couldn't keep track of the different. Like I kept thinking, like I would have put Adrian Peterson for the Lions and be like, "Ooh, I'll get good rare," and then
Got it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Sam, what website was that on?
That was Pro Football Reference.
Okay.
yeah,
And on my phone, I just tried Tyler Eifert. It would have worked. That was it. That was the correct answer.
So we could have saved 8 minutes. We
Could
had
have
it right up
saved
the
all that time. Thanks for playing, guys. Thanks for listening and watching to all of you out there. Minnesota Football Party returns next week, Monday through Thursday, and our roundtable is on Friday morning. So tune in for that. He's Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL. He's here in the Twin Cities going to Vikings practices. That's Luke Inman. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Follow my tweets as well for updates from TCO. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on the roundtable on Locked On Sports Minnesota.